I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later, we're going to talk about reporters going to pot, quite literally. But first, the power of local government up from the Broomfield City Council. Good to see you again. It's good to have, what was your name again?
Always
Sheldon.
great to be in your presence,
Mike
Jon.
Shelton.
Thank you so much.
From Broomfield. Stephanie Piko from Centennial.
Yes,
Thank you for being here.
Sure thing.
Very Bronco-ish.
Very Bronco-ish.
She beat me.
I like the orange and
She
blue.
wins the prize.
She wins the prize.
United in orange.
Yeah. You can be the third place backup kicker. All right, the reason I wanted to talk to you folks is that you're free market oriented, libertarian oriented politicians on the local level. I can't think of a more thankless task than that. And I want to talk, first of all, about the power of local government in Colorado, because you know it's there. You know the school board's there, you know the city council's there, you know the Park and Recs board is someplace. But we don't realize the incredible power. Let me start here. You ran for city council. Why is this important? Why is Colorado's local government different than most states?
Local governments in Colorado have a lot of power, where we have home rule charters which allow us to do pretty much everything that the state hasn't already made laws for. So there is a lot of power. We can pass taxes and whatnot, put new boards on. We make deals with other governments, buy water, just an incredible amount of things. If you ever wanted to be involved and know everything that's going on in your community, local government's the place to do it.
And it seems to be that local government is where the rubber meets the road. That we love Washington politics. It's all we can talk about. And there's even more Washington media now than ever before. Like the Washington Press Corps needs more people. There's not as much on the local side, but it's the businesses and the homeowners that have to deal with your awful regulations and your day-to-day stuff. So, I mean, isn't this where government really happens?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a set of standards and rules that we have to follow as a governing body as well as just anybody else does. But when it comes down to having interactions with people, being responsive to what people ask, who plowed your street after that snowstorm, I mean, those are the things that people care about. How are they going to get to work faster? What can they do to improve my life? That's what local government does.
You know, I mean, we know that America is sending troops here or there. We know that NAFTA is being renegotiated. But I remember my time on the RTD board getting phone calls from, there is a puddle in your parking lot making it hard for me to get out of my car. And I'm like, oh my God, leave me alone. My street hasn't been plowed. I'm like,
snow plows a lot.
I don't do that. That's not what we do. You need to call it. Well, you're my rep. No, and it's just it's awful. Let me ask, why don't more limited government people get involved in the level that you guys have decided to get in? When it comes to running for governor, running for senator, man, Republicans are out there going, I want to give back to this community. I need to run for governor. And that happens all the time. I never hear, particularly some rich guy going, I want to give back to my community, my state. I'm going to go and run for the Parks Department.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It seems counterintuitive that libertarians would want to serve on government, but if there is going to be anybody there to say no, it's going to be us that's saying no to some of the new programs that other people might want to start. And some of those phone calls you were talking about with stop signs and snow plows, those are some of my favorite calls because it allows me to make sure that the government's running really efficiently, that they're not leaving some people behind or not spending money on places.
How's the graft?
The graft of a city council person, like I said
earlier. Payoff's good?
No, not at all.
Some good Tammany Hall stuff going on there?
What we usually get is just the accusations of being in somebody's pocket, but it's usually not the case.
Yeah. I saw what you drove up in. Yeah, I mean, talk to me, why don't more Republicans, more conservatives, more libertarians, more people who want to keep government tighter get involved in the level of government that you've decided to take on?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the perception is it can't get anything done. It's too bogged down. It's all the same. And and I know I can speak for Centennial, runs completely different as a contract model city. And the other thing we have in our area is special districts. Our library districts are separate, our school districts are separate, our fire districts are separate. We don't, those have their own boards that are fiscally accountable to their own constituents for how they decide to operate
And
their,
nobody knows who are on
and
those
nobody knows who's on
boards.
those boards. And those are, you know, those boards decide when budget cuts need to happen and what part of the library are they going to cut back on, as opposed to a city having to decide, okay, we're going to close this library and keep this one open. That's up to that other responsible party to decide.
You used a term called contract city. Is that, that sounds awful, like somebody put a contract out on this. What is a contract city?
So contract model city, we have, for a city of 110,000 people, we have 64 employees. And
that's
we
so awesome.
put out contracts, and we use private sector to provide our services. So our public works is a private sector contract. Our home inspections, our inspection department, Safe Built does all of our home stuff. And
Someone once
business
referred to that as
inspections.
the Yellow Pages test, which is, if I can find people to do it in the Yellow Pages, for you younger people, you have to ask your grandparents what the Yellow Pages are.
There's an app for that.
Yeah, there's an app for that. But that we don't have to be owning all the lawnmowers to trim the parks, the grass in the park. We can contract that out, and therefore we can keep government close and lean, and we can cancel the contract if they're not doing well.
It's a great idea.
They have
I'll
key
to look into
performance.
that.
Well, we have key performance measures for our contractors, and they have to meet their goals every quarter, that they show to the city that they're hitting their goals and their performance models that they have to do. And you know, it makes it a lot easier for us to contract government when times are tough and and things are a little bit leaner. We're not obligated to have to carry a staff that, you know, it makes it very difficult a lot of times for government to shed employees when things are going on the tight side.
You also said that conservatives don't want to get involved in local government, run for seats, get involved in the boards and commissions because it's too bogged down. They think it's not working. Let me try something else. They don't want to invest the time because we don't do meetings, all right? We don't do protests. We don't chant, hey, hey, ho, ho, and then with a blank, has got. We don't do that. We don't like communal things. We work independently, and you're telling me you want me to give up my private time, my time with my family or away from my business to hang out and talk to a bunch of people I disagree with? It is distasteful. That's why we don't get involved. Is that the real reason?
That could be one reason, you know, single, no kids, so I had all the time in the world to do this.
Yeah, so basically government by losers. Is that what we're talking about?
Almost, yeah. You could say that.
Yeah. Can't get a date? I think I'll run for city council. I mean, I had the same thing when I was on the RTD board. Fortunately, I was married to someone who was pretty understanding, but we had no kids, and it sucked up, this little part-time job sucked up about 35 hours of my week. But I loved it, and I jumped into it.
You do have to love it. And the trouble is the people that love it are usually the ones that want to start new programs, that don't go do things on their own through the community, but want to get a board together and take some money from the community budget to get it done. And it's those people that see something wrong and want to fix it right away, and force people to pay for it.
Let me take it from my view. All right, so I'm looking as a policy wonk. Colorado's government is on the local level. We have a good state government. It's big, but compared to other states, it isn't as big as other states. Our government is in the 3,700 special districts and governments throughout Colorado. That's where the meat is. That's where municipal socialism grows up. That's where zoning laws go crazy and anti-growth stuff goes crazy and nannyism goes crazy. And I want to see more people like you get involved, if not running for the positions that you guys are silly enough to run for, but at least get on the boards and commissions. People don't realize that there's this substrata underneath you at the city council of boards and commissions. Talk about Centennial just as an example. There are boards that you appoint, right?
I started out on the open space board for the city of Centennial, so there is an open space sales tax and an Arapahoe County tax that's dedicated, approved by the voters twice, to go directly into open space. So you're overseeing millions of dollars that need to be spent appropriately where people need and want it. And they dictated that they wanted it spent on parks and trails and open space, and that's where the money gets spent. It doesn't get blended into the general fund or anything like that. It stays there.
What kind of time commitment is it to be on one of these boards and commissions? My hometown of Boulder has 25 of these things, and there's 5 members on each. I mean, that's a lot of people, and the people who volunteer are usually one of two folks. Either they're part of the crony class, that is, they're architects and they want to be on the zoning board. Well, that's interesting. Or they're people who want to tell other people how to live. So I'll join the energy board and tell you that you can't do that. And this, for the left, is where it's their AAA and AA farm teams where they find the future representatives and the future folks. You were on a board, now you're city council. I assume soon you'll be mayor because you're running for that.
Running for mayor.
So, how do we tempt people, good people, to get on these boards and commissions so that they don't have to go run an election, but they can still get involved and have fun, because it doesn't seem like fun.
That's a good point. There is no election for boards and commissions. You might just fill out a form or go on an interview, and you might get the position. And they don't meet nearly as often as a city council or a commission would. They're probably meeting once a month or maybe every other month or something like that.
Give me an example of why they're important. What is it that they do? They actually have power. You're talking about spending power. I mean, a zoning board has incredible power.
They could, yeah. It depends on how their charter is structured. In Broomfield, we've intentionally not given power to a lot of these boards, but you've seen
even a liquor board gets to decide whether or not you get to go into business. That's a power.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why I put myself on the liquor licensing board, so that everybody gets a license.
As it should be. And the kickbacks there are pretty damn good, too.
Sometimes.
All right. So,
not at all, actually.
Well, you're living in the wrong town. Tell me, how do we entice more people to do what you're doing, and to convince them it's not bad, it's really fun?
Well, the past few years in Centennial, we've done a Centennial 101 class, which is basically invited people to sign up. We take 30 people at a time. It's a 6-week course, 1 night a week, and you learn all the aspects of the city, the ins and outs of why we do what we do, how we're structured, what our limits are, and what our potential is. And that has really increased the level of people interested in being on a board and commission. Once you do a class like that, you have a better understanding, a better appreciation of, one, how hard the people that do work that are in the city and what all they accomplish, but two, how complicated it is. And I think it's that piece of complication that makes people go, you know, that is interesting. That is something I could do. And I went from open space to planning and zoning, so.
You're one of those. Yeah.
So, but it's.
And what I found was, even if you're in the minority, a good person can stop a lot of bad ideas. You might not be able to reform government, but you what I'm hearing is a bunch of people complaining about Washington. I get that. Complaining about the state. I get that. And particularly, let's be honest, on the Republican and conservative and libertarian sides, we drink a lot of scotch, in your case, Ripple, but and complain about government, and then we go back to our jobs.
And we're so powerless over that government.
Right. You know? This one you can have so much impact if you just do it. Yeah. Make the last word. Why should people?
We're the first line of defense. I get calls all the time, and I get letters from people who are dissatisfied with some service in their government, and we're the ones that can go in and figure out what's going on and make sure that everybody's held accountable. That's why I like the job the best.
Get involved. Mike, thank you. Stephanie, thank you.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned.